Process to Perform, helping you harness your potential on the way to greatness. I'm your host, Mike Wall. Thanks as always for listening. Reminder to please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Spotify, and now the iHeartRadio app. We're lucky this week. Process to Perform has and will be centered on athlete development. Even at the highest level, there's very few guys I'd categorize as true pros. You know, guys that I point out to my kids as someone who's doing it right. And today we're lucky to have one of the best guys in the league joining us, Kiko Alonso, out of Los Gatos High School through Oregon, got drafted by the Bills. And we were lucky enough to, or I was lucky enough to spend some time with him in Miami. Guys, not only a tremendous playmaker on the field, but he's just a guy that really gets it. He's really kind of the epitome of what we talk about on this podcast all the time, enjoys the process of being an elite professional athlete. So Kiko, thanks so much for coming on, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, absolutely. Your demeanor on the field is just, it's a throwback demeanor. And I say that because a couple of weeks ago, I was telling the Brett Favre story. And one of the things that Brett taught us was, if you do your job, if you're a good player, if you're prepared, you know, there's a lot of people out there now that have to manufacture emotion, whether they're yelling, pounding their heads on the locker, whether they have to, you know, get up and dance in front of everybody with music. There's a lot of stuff going on kind of before the game, or there's even the guy that's real quiet in the corner of the locker room, just, you know, trying to get amped up, listening to music. And one thing, no matter what we were doing, I always appreciate about you is you understood the idea that if you're a good player and you're prepared, go out and have fun. Like you don't have to act like the tough guy, because you are the tough guy. And so I guess what I really wanted to ask is, what is your approach to this job? It is a job, but you look like you're having a great time out there. So, you know, where did that come from?
Well, I think kind of like what you said is, you know, when you go out on the game, you know, all the work has been done and all the preparation's been done. So now it's time to go out and you know, play and you know, I actually wrote something down here. I was looking at this quote from Floyd Mayweather, where I think he had some people, like, they were just in his locker room before a big fight against like Juan Manuel Marquez, and they're like they were just like, man, like, how is this guy so loose, you know, going into this big fight? And Mayweather's like, man, I put in all the work, you know, now it's time to see if I'm, you know, prepared or not. You know, just worrying right now is not gonna do any good. So, you know, it's kind of like that. You know, we put in all the work during the week, you know, all the film study, all the, you know, extra conditioning. And yeah, I just think, you know, when I go out, when it's game day, you know, you did all the work, you put in all the work already. So now it's just time to go, you know, compete and put that preparation and work to the test. And then obviously after is when you know, you assess and look back and see, you know, what worked and what didn't, and then you move forward and you learn and grow. But I think we all know it, like you, after a great week of preparation, you know, that's when you feel the best and most confident. And I think that swagger and that confidence and that looseness comes from when you had a great week of preparation.
Yeah, man. You play so free, and that's just another way to look at it. You have the confidence. You have the confidence enough to play free. And you just mentioned Floyd Mayweather, and I know that you and I have talked a ton about, you know, whether it's MMA or boxing. But when you're growing up, are those your mentors? Like, are those the guys you look at? Because that kind of confidence is what you're working with, really. So is the boxing type, the MMA type, are those the guys you kind of look around and go, I like that attitude?
Yeah, that's definitely. I'm a big fan of boxing, MMA, you know, all combat sports. Really, like, I'm a fan of just sports and competition, and those are definitely some of the guys I look to. But I like to look at all different sports. But that's just one example of you know, I think you can definitely say Mayweather's one of the best, if not the best, at his sport. And, you know, it's cool to sometimes be able to see, like, how he went about things, and just to hear that, you know, it just makes a ton of sense. And you can definitely apply it to football, because football, it's a little different, because boxing, you train for like 4 or 6 months for one fight. Football, it's week to week. So it's really just you put in that work for the week, and then Sunday you kind of see what, you see like, okay, am I prepared? Am I not? Did I do everything I needed to do? And, football, you'll really, like, it'll show, like if you prepared and you're ready, then, you're going to have you'll have good performance. If you didn't, then you probably won't play very well. So that's another great part about football is that it really shows. Like there's no like you can't really fake it,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the cool thing about football is the feedback loop is short enough. I mean, as compared to boxing, where you get a chance to kind of make amends immediately, but it's not too short in the sense that like you have a process that you can kind of go through every week. You have a routine. So if you get done with the game on Sunday and after the game, or even if you watch film on Monday, that you got some stuff you have to fix, like you have time to really dedicate some time on fixing that. Whereas maybe in like a basketball season or a soccer season, the games are turning over so fast. Sometimes that part of it's difficult, but it's also not like a 7-week training camp or something you're getting prepped for in boxing, excuse me. So that's one thing I always really appreciated about the sport too, is that quick feedback loop. So you can get rid of that bad, if you have a bad taste in your mouth, like exactly what you need to do to fix it, you can fix it. And then, like you said, you have that confidence, just go out there and play free. When you go to, if we can skip then, if you're talking about your game day mindset, like when you go out there, you have that confidence, but what's your process? Can you take somebody through, like, we got a lot of kids out there that want to know, how does Kiko Alonso get ready for a game? Like what is that process you go through? What are the checklists that you need to have so you feel like, okay, I'm ready for this game? And I'm just talking about specifically on a Sunday morning.
Yeah. That's the cool part about all this, man. Like I've been doing it for so long that, a lot of it's trial and error. You like kind of what I was saying to earlier is you just find what works for you and you take it, and what doesn't, then you throw it out. But for me, like this past year, I when I wake up, I'll put on like some music, not some crazy hard music, but maybe like a easier, like a reggae or something, just nice and loose, just while I, brush my teeth, shower, and that kind of goes on and then, the closer I get to the game, then I start to like ramp up the music a little bit. But also, I think it's just, find that right balance of looseness and intensity, because, you don't want to be too much of one or the other. Mm-hmm. So, and especially I think for me, I like to get, I like to go be a little more loose, further from the game. And then as the game gets a little closer, then start ramping up that intensity and that focus to get ready for, a battle.
Yeah, for sure. It's I think especially as a young athlete or even a young pro, that might be the hardest thing to do. I remember when I was really young coming into the league, one of the guys I really looked up to, he threw up before every game. And so, and it was nerves. And I got to the point, I'd never done that before, but I remember there was a season where I was throwing up before games, and then, at one point you kind of look like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm not that nervous. I'm ready to go. Because that's not manifesting as something that you're excited about, right? That's manifesting as something that you're, that's more of like an uncertain feeling. That's certainly not, to me at least, that's not how you want to approach a game. You want to approach it like you said, let's be out there and be free.
Yeah, I know a few people that would do that, to throw up before the game, and I think one thing they all had in common was they were all savages.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's the guy that I learned it from, he was the guy. It was Frank Winters. I looked up to him. He was like a 15-year vet, man. He was an awesome guy. And first thing, when I signed my contract, he was like the first guy I saw at St. Norbert College, and because I signed late, I was holding out, so I went into the training camp late. And he took me over to the first thing we did is he took me over to like the bar, and we had like a couple Bud Lights. And I remember I sat down, and he was like, "We only drink Bud Light here." It was like 2 rules. We only drink Bud Light here. And then I go, "Well, Frank, don't we have it's football. doing a football. He's football can wait. You're buying me around. Like, oh man, you're my hero. You guys, unbelievable.
It's a different time.
Yeah, different. It was definitely a different time. So, we always talk about this podcast on about routine, and you're certainly one of the more disciplined guys that, especially this generation, that I've seen in the locker room. Can you talk about a couple things, like particularly during this season, that you feel really make an impact on your career, aside from, obviously I know you're a good person in meetings and you work extremely hard during practice, but some of the ancillary things like your movement prep, your pre-practice routines, maybe your diet, something that you really stick to, that you've seen an impact over your course of your career.
Well, I think first, like what I would say is most important, like for me, and I think for everybody, is, before you even start talking about, just the fundamentals, techniques, and all that stuff, is sleep, diet, hydration, and stress management. Like that's what I would think is
nice.
Before anything, try and get that squared away. And I think that, like, I really got that kind of right these last couple of, actually really just this last year, and I felt the benefits from that. But as far as routine, I think everyone just got to kind of find out what works for them, and you can kind of do that through the off season. And for me, like each season, I go back to the whole trial and error thing, where I go through a season, and at the end of the season, I figure out what worked for me routine wise. And then in the off season, I also just try and go visit, different coaches, whether it's movement, whether it's strength, whether it's MMA, just to add some more tools to the toolbox. But it's really important to find yourself a routine that works for you. And me in particular, I'm an early bird. I like to get there. I like to get to the facilities a few hours before we start up, just so I can get my body working, whether it's stretching, soft tissue, I get in the tubs, maybe get a little film study. And then, so I've already done before we can start up. And then, pre-practice, I like to go just to get a little extra warm up, just my own warm up that, over the years I've kind of developed. And
did they let you play your own music down with New Orleans? Like they did
sometimes, but I got there after training camp, so I'm not gonna come in and throw it. You got a lot of vets in there, so I wasn't gonna come in there and throw in all that Spanish music. I didn't know how that would be taken.
Perfect fit for South Florida.
I know, right? I'm gonna miss it for sure.
So you just talked about, can you go into a little bit more about what you meant by stress management?
Yeah. Kind of, definitely during the season is trying to, like, I'd say don't, obviously there's a lot going on. People have families, you got kids. Nowadays you got Instagram, social media, and you got all types of stuff going on. I think it's easy to get, lost in that. For me, I like to just, focus on football. And, I turn my phone off. Like, I don't want anyone calling me. Like, even my parents and my girlfriend, they get mad at me because a lot of times, like, I don't even talk to them. And they're like, man, like, it's been a week or two and I haven't even talked to them. And they'll be like, what the heck? But, that's just how locked in I am. And I think that's kind of how you have to be. You got to be locked in. And so, I would definitely advise, not being on social media, because that's just stuff that you don't need. All that's going to be is a distraction. And I think the key is to limit the distractions and maximize the football. But again, it's what works. It's what works for you. Some people, I feel like shouldn't be watching, hours and hours of film, because that's just too much for them. And more so they need to go out there and play. But
that's an interesting point though, Geek. So because you're a guy that is very instinctive on the field, And a lot of people, it's very easy for that to be dismissed as like, oh, he just, he's just kind of got it. And I was always like, well, I bet you he watches a lot of film, right? So,
Yeah.
So there's different kind of behavioral traits and personality traits, and maybe some guys can get information overload, but you are a very instinctual player. Now, is that just part of that's a little bit of luck, but a lot of that's the fact that you do spend a lot of time watching film, like your keys.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think a lot of that comes from film. I tell people like some of the best plays I've made, and like the tackle for losses, the interceptions, the big plays that look like was an instinctive play that people would say those come from film study. I can confidently say that because you watch enough film, they come out in something and what's about to happen. So that's what allows you to make a big time play, because you know what's coming before it comes, and so you can be one step ahead, and that's where big time plays come from.
Yeah, see, it's all about finding those keys and being able to make decisions based off those keys. And then that's always kind of what we talk about here is you've got your technique down to the point where that part of it's automatic for you. You're such a pro. You've got all your footwork, and you play low. You have all that proper technique. And when you're able to automate that process, that part of the process, then you can really start firing. When you see these keys, you can just read and react. And you've kind of transitioned to that complete external awareness.
That's why you work all those drills and techniques just so they become second nature, and so you don't have to think about it. So then you see something, you don't have to worry about, okay, like, how do I do this? You already know what to do technique wise. So then you can go one step ahead and start to really key in on the offense. Whereas if you didn't, then you're just more worried about what you got to do. So once you know what you got to do, then you can take it to another level and start really keying in on the offense and reacting off what they give you.
Yeah, I do this. Like I have a kind of a master of craft pyramid, and after you get through your foundational knowledge and technique and routines, you get to, you have to have a conceptual knowledge of scheme, and then you have to have an intimate view of your opponent. And I think that's really what you're talking about. Can you give me a series or a 1st and 10 at the 50-yard line, and you're playing the Carolina Panthers? Like what, young athletes that are thinking about, okay, what is this guy really talking about? What keys are you looking at? They line up in a 2x2 with 11 personnel. Like what do you start looking at? What are your keys? What does Kiko Alonso look at from that linebacker position?
Man, well, first of all, it's a situation. So you said 1st and 10, 50-yard line, that's not a great spot to be. That's a shot zone. So first thing is like, okay, everyone alert the shot, which is, they're going to play fake the run, possibly, and then take a deep shot. So that's number one. And then 2, you said 11 personnel, 2x2.
Yep.
Is the back at home or then the gun?
Mm-hmm.
If the back's at home, then, obviously that's a little more favorable to run. And then, but then again, it depends team to team. Some teams, usually back at home will be, run, play action, and then gun will be more pass, and then, a little bit of run, a little bit of screen. But that's kind of one of the things where you just take your game to another level, because you first go situation, where's the field position, what's the score, what quarter is it? Then you go kind of how you said, okay, we got 11 personnel, we got 2x2. Where's the tight end lined up? Where's the running back lined up? What does the O line look like? Are they soft on their? Are they rock back? That's more favorable to pass. Are they hunkered down? That looks like more run.
Do you usually find a guy up front that you can key on?
You know what? Sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's more for me when I'm out in the game, I can kind of feel it. Whereas, a lot of people say they look on film and they find the guy that gives it away. But for me, I feel like I like in the course of the game, then I kind of try and pick up that that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
in the course of the game. Because I feel like I can see it better as opposed to seeing film and then trying to see it out there in the game, just because it's
Yeah,
too
that makes
different.
sense. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Hey, you were Chip Kelly at Oregon, right?
Yep.
Chip was into like sports science and recovery kind of before it was cool. Did you did you take a lot away from that? I mean, did that transfer at all?
Oh yeah. I mean, we were so fortunate having that. He was definitely way ahead in the sense that he was bringing in sleep experts who I still chat with to this day. Named Sherry Mosh, is Stanford, and to this day we'll talk. She'll be like, "Hey, how's your sleep going? If you have any questions." But he was bringing in sleep experts, diet. People talking about. He had the HRV, the HRV monitors,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time we had a great strength coach who was also he was the track and field coach, but he was all about mobility and power, as opposed to I feel like your typical football strength coaches, all right, let's just bang out some kind of meathead, which I like, but I think it's really important to get that mobility side, because you think about it, we're all strong. If you're in the NFL, you're a linebacker, you're a D tackle, offensive tackle, or O line. Like, we're all strong already. I think one thing we can all improve in is getting a little more mobile, and I think that'll help, especially preventing injury.
What other sports did you play in high school?
It's baseball.
It was baseball? Yeah. I always wonder if how many linebackers were wrestlers in high school. So I always think, like, you talk about stability, your core is a tree trunk, and then you allow yourself to be mobile at the appendages, because you have that stability mobility mesh with wrestlers that is unlike anybody else, really, right?
Yeah, I wrestled in middle school, and like I would go to practices in high school, just to get some, because I really do like wrestling. I don't know why honestly I don't know why I didn't wrestle. I think in hindsight I wish I kind of did.
Yeah,
but I think like you said, I think that was definitely a great thing to do. To kind of like cross train or even help you in football is that wrestling. You start to get that like leverage and like you said, the mobility. So
yeah, those guys, and plus those are the hardest workouts I've ever been through.
Yeah, hardest workouts instills that toughness.
It really does, that mental resilience. It's funny, like, so my kids are 14. My kids are 14 and 11 now, and so you want all the mistakes you made. You're trying to like correct that with, like, especially with my with my boys. So I'm like, hey man, you should wrestle, or you should go do you should go do jujitsu or all this stuff. And he's like, man, I just want to play soccer. So it'll take him like one practice, and he's like, no, I don't want to. This is hard. Like, why do I want to do this? Like, not that the other sports aren't, but it's just, they don't. It's hard to see. Hindsight's really easy, right? Hindsight's 20/20. But when you're looking down the barrel of, like, I think I put him in. I remember the first jiu-jitsu place I took him was in Vegas. We were living there, and I was trying to find the least Fight Club-esque place. And so I was just going based off the music they were playing on their YouTube videos for their promos. So I walked in the first day, and there's this little Asian kid that's about Max's height, but he's clearly older, and he's doing back handsprings down the mat, like the whole mat. And Max like looks at me like wide-eyed, and sure enough, like, that's the kid they paired him up the first day, and the kid's like a ninja, right? Just killing. Max is in a pretzel, and we go there for a couple of days. Max is like, dude, I don't want to be here. This isn't fun. I go, why? He goes, because they keep putting me with that kid. I'm just kidding. I go, oh, it's a character builder. He goes, for who? What kind of gyms do you gravitate towards in the off season? You said you try to travel around and find some new stuff, but, like, in the last couple of years, what do you find yourself doing more often than not?
Last couple of years, I've been kind of like how I said is I really gravitated towards the more mobility side.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to Kelly Starrett's gym in San Francisco. Just working in movement. Especially like through my hips and thoracic, just because that's where I felt like I was tight, and I feel like I'm sure football players, in particular linebackers, I'm sure they could all use work on those areas. And I've been I've been doing that, working that since college, which,
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the Chip Kelly, is that we were doing that stuff, back in college. So, we were lucky to have that. But, I do my strength training at Cal Strength in San Ramon in the Bay Area. And then and then usually I do like a yoga, or like I said, I'll go to Kelly Stretch Gym to work mobility. And then I'll go to my MMA gym just because, I love, training boxing. But I think just the biggest thing I've done like in the past few years is just work that mobility between the yoga and all the exercise that I get from, and even the FRC stuff, which I think is fairly new, and a lot of, it's kind of the craze nowadays. It seems like I like that stuff a lot, like the hip cars. I love that stuff. You done any of that stuff?
I have not.
I think it's pretty basically moving. It's similar to what Kelly Starrett talks about or preaches.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's twofold. It's the fact that you're getting all that work in, and then two, the fact that you're curious enough to go do it. Like that's, it's again, you're an accumulation of your experiences, right? So you're bringing a lot more to the table, and that's like a message that I try to keep with all these athletes, regardless of what level you're at. Is like go seek help anywhere you can find it, right? Go be curious. Because to your point, like your routine changes every off season, and your pre-practice and all those routines, like they're always going to evolve, and that's that's the part you have to embrace.
Yeah, that's what that's what I love. That, man, like kind of like exactly how you said. Every year, I'm adding new stuff, and there's always new stuff coming out, and some of it's like not so good, but that's kind of like on you. You kind of you see what the new stuff, and try and take stuff from every little gym and all these coaches, and just try and see what works for you and what you like, and you add that to the routine.
Do they so this off season, because of the pandemic, obviously with the NFL, I assume, I think for most teams are going to be working remotely. Have you, like, what have you heard as far as, you don't have to get into specifics, obviously, with the Saints, but is that basically the gist of it, is you guys are going to do everything on Zoom?
No, we're actually, I don't know if you saw, but Sean Payne came out and was like, all right, we'll see you guys in training camp. So
you're just on your own. See, dude, that's so awesome. I just I just did a deal on this. Like when I was playing, there wasn't off-season programs, and I'm not saying they're not valuable, but to the point that you've been making all along with all this information that you're gathering, and you're continuing to gather after years of doing this in the league, doing it the right way. It's like, this is part of developing that professionalism. And there's certainly value in off-season training programs from a team standpoint, but because we have this unique situation, like, good for Sean Payton is embracing it as an opportunity, embrace it as an opportunity. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit you with a couple questions before we wrap up that are just kind of stuff we've talked about before. So Kiko is an avid, Kiko and I will kind of share ideas about reading books, man. What are you reading right now?
Right now, I got this Ben Greenfield book called Boundless that's really like, it's almost like an encyclopedia to, optimizing, it says right here it's called Boundless, upgrade your brain. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good stuff in there, from recovery, just overall health, whether it's mental, gut health, you got biohacks in there to, from, I don't know, supplements to take. There's just all types of good, like, great stuff. I would recommend that to everybody, especially every athlete, just because there's a ton of, great information. There's also a ton of, like, kooky stuff that that I don't know if you need, but there's definitely a lot of good stuff. It talks fasting, which I've gotten into. There's just great stuff in there, but it's really that right now.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
one of my, I think, no, go ahead.
I was going to ask you on that diet, Kiko, or on that fasting, excuse me. How does your weight fluctuate during the off season?
Usually I'm more like, I get lighter in the off season just because I'm not eating as much because, during the season to maintain my weight, I got to eat a lot. And I feel like,
you got to work at it, right?
Yeah, I gotta work at it for sure.
Yeah.
Like you'll see my plates in the meal room, and they look pretty ridiculous. With the amounts of food. But yeah, that's why in the off season I just give my body a little break from all those calories. And I think that's, I feel like when I'm fasting, I don't know, I feel really good. Mentally feel real clear. Feel like your body feels good. It's almost like it's like you have less inflammation. I don't know if that's correlated, but
there's definitely that mind-body connection, if nothing else, right? So your body sends signals like of emotion, like your body sends emotional signals to your brain before your brain tells you how you should be feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I know you spend a lot of time like you working out with your brother and everything. Like who have you learned the most from a coaching standpoint? I mean, this could be even like a little league coach, but like pull away as guys you just really appreciate their time.
Man, list goes on, but definitely one of my good friends, the head trainer at Cal Strength, definitely has played a big part, in my development, mentally and physically, which is always why I come back. One of the reasons why I come back to the Bay Area just to come train at his gym because really is a special gym, and he is definitely a great mind. And a guy that you want to have his, see, there's some people you want their eyes on you just to see how you move and he's definitely a guy I feel comfortable with. And I encourage like other people to find like, to go back to routine, to find like someone like that, you feel comfortable with. And, it takes time to find the right spot. And anyway, but man, throughout my life, I've been blessed to have, since high school. High school, I had a great high school head coach. College, we had Chip, and then my linebacker coach, Don Pelham. They're all in UCLA right now. But I just feel like they were way ahead. Kind of how we talked about, and I think that's why I had success early on in my career, like coming in as a rookie, was because I was so prepared. And I just remember feeling like, man, I was way more prepared than other guys. And I think it was just based off of, being with the staff I was with in college, and having my parents, my agent. I have a great agent, Steve Carrick. And I already talked about our strength coach in college, Jimmy Radcliffe. I feel like he was, he's kind of different from everybody in the sense that the way he trained, where it was very, power, a lot of Olympic movements. I've been lucky to have, great strength coaches, great supporting staff from my family. I made a great decision in my agent, which I think is extremely important, is picking the right agent.
Yeah.
I'm missing a lot of people.
You've really put together a nice team is what you've done, right? You know exactly where you need to go for help if you need help. That's, you got questions. That's so important. That's so important.
It's super important.
It's funny. It's like and that seems like that's another one of those things that seems like the most obvious step to take is like, well, yeah, just make sure you got good people around you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Which is easier said than done.
Yeah, it really is. All right. Last one for me. In a couple sentences, you got an aspiring athlete out there that wants to be the next Kiko Alonso, right? Like, how does a high school kid get from here to there?
First thing I would say is hard work, man. It's a lot of work. I remember being, a lot of days being out by myself, whether it was running stairs, running hills or just, doing, working out. But, from ever since I was, in high school, I just remember, or even middle school, I remember when I was wrestling in middle school, I would be just out there working, whether it was by myself, whether it was with people, dedication as well. Obviously you gotta, love what you do. So I think that's why, I feel like I've gotten to where I am because, I love, playing football and just, challenging myself physically, and mentally, spiritually, just to be the best, version of myself, essentially, and that's just a never-ending process, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kiko, man, thank you so much for coming on. That was very insightful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. Really enjoying listening to the podcast. I'm glad you put me on it, man.
Yeah, it's very cool. Hopefully, that was gnarly, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you too, man. This is my first time doing it, and I really enjoyed it.
You should do this whenever you got the chance because, like, more people need to hear kind of the right way to do it. Not like I don't want to sound like altruistic, but guys that are out there like being successful and just understanding like, your first answer is you got to work hard, and your second answer is you got to love what you do. Like most people don't say that, man. Like it's just different now, So that's awesome. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's the truth, man.
Yeah, truth's easy, right?
Yeah.
All right, I hope Kiko made some more fans today. That's an awesome guy, awesome work ethic, great person, great player. Follow him at @LBravo_47 on Instagram. This is Process to Perform. Any questions on this episode, contact me at info@unrivaledsystems.com, Unrivaled Systems on Instagram, or @UnrivaledESS on Twitter. I'm your host, Mike Wall. Thanks for listening.